Welcome back, everybody. I'm Sean LaFlock. I'm here with Scott Hagness. This is Conversations, Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity. Scott, how's it going?
Doing good here. Real good.
Nice, man. Our obligatory weather update. How is it going in Portland? Is it winter yet?
No, it's
It's
we got a
reversed.
late. It's unusually warm. It was
Ooh,
like 70 degrees yesterday, and it's been dry for nearly a week. And I think it's supposed to be dry and warm for almost a week to come.
very interesting. So you're probably
Yeah,
relishing the opportunity, I imagine.
I'm riding a lot. And what about you, weather-wise?
Okay. All right. So actually, we just got a little bit of a reprieve from the cold or from the warm. We had a cold day the other day. It was like in the 60, it's about 60 degrees at night, and then it was a beautiful day. Mid 70s throughout the day. Gorgeous day today. Pretty much not too different. It's interesting because the temperature has dropped, but the humidity isn't too far off.
Mm,
It doesn't seem. But I'll take it. It's fantastic relative to where it was before.
yeah, nice.
Um, so one of the things that is coming up for people in my gym is Wadapalooza, and we have a couple teams that are actually being put together. But after the qualifier, there's a tendency for people to kind of be wondering what the heck is going on and how to actually prepare for a fitness competition, especially in a small group. Have you had any opportunities in training small groups of athletes?
Definitely have done some small groups to 2 and 3 on ones in an individual setting, and including writing some team workouts for teams
Hmm.
training for the regionals or the games at some point.
Okay. And what are some of the considerations that you have when you're writing a program for multiple athletes who are kind of training simultaneously? What are some of the
Yeah,
trade-offs? What are the positives, the negatives, that kind of thing?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's absolutely trade-offs there. Uh, so if it's training for an event like Wadapalooza in your guys' case, generally the level of the athletes is going to be roughly in the same ballpark, which
Hmm.
makes it a little easier. And you also have a common thing you're training for. When I was writing the workouts for those sorts of cases, it was things where we were going to pose competitive type situations to gain experience, whether this was knowing when to share workloads in cases where you could trade off, or the things, like where the chin holds while someone has to do something else, or the deadlift hold, exposure to those sorts of things, and trying to make scenarios that looked like something we might see, being a little creative at times.
Hmm.
But then, which is different than training. Like I have groups of 2 and 3 that I'm doing presently that aren't training for like a CrossFit style competition. Some are just general health, but they're fairly advanced.
Okay.
Others are, I work with a number of professional dancers.
Hmm.
So similar activity, but everyone's differences in the gym were fairly pronounced. And so there you have some trade-offs because you can't fully individualize. But I found, and it comes with time and knowing the athletes that you're working with, how I can individualize within a session pretty well, not just necessarily on load and reps, but complexity where they can be working together in an appropriate situation.
Yeah, yeah. So if they are non-competitive athletes, what does it look like in terms of the programming on a more advanced level? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, and this would be your size of group, but we'll often go through a warm up together,
Hmm.
controlled articulations and some prep, some breathing drills maybe. And then I usually have a couple, 1 to 2 individual things where then the athletes will go and do those. And I've individually coached them already or looked at them. So they do their individual stuff. Then we're going into some work, and I try to pair it in some way. Like to use an example, yesterday I was working with it's a couple. I've coached for many years. I've coached her now for a couple of years, um, and so she's working free balancing handstands, and we're trying to develop her back strength for chin ups. She's got chin ups pretty good, but she's arm dominant. So she's got a pairing of free balancing work and scapular work on the bar.
Mm-hmm.
He's working on getting more efficient at his bar muscle ups and is more of a lower skill level on handstands. So we're doing body line and rebalancing work on the wall. So I'm able to kind of coordinate this at the same time, but it's different. And then we went into a strength. It was a bent arm strength work where the exercises were slightly different, but it was generally similar themed. And then they did a kind of a conditioning finisher with more kettlebell and mace work and some med ball throws that were roughly the same, though loaded differently. And then in the cool down, we kind of do the same, like developmental flexibility work. There's times that it's diverged more. Like I've literally had, when she was newer, she was doing more like sets and reps and things, and he was doing I think velocity based work, with the push band and hitting squats at a certain bar speed. Once I kind of got him set up, he's doing that. I can watch her form. I can check in with him, and this depends on the confidence and skill you have as a coach to be able to pull some of those things off.
So
in
you're
a larger group, it would get a little harder if that was 5 athletes.
So you're shadowing this thing the entire time then?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And would you say one of the prerequisites for individuals doing this is some kind of buy-in and proficiency in their ability to trust within the coach?
Mm-hmm.
And and just like commit to doing those certain things? Because I can't imagine everybody in the world wants to be able to do to cars as their warm up, without just blowing through it. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, in this case too, it's like I will either literally go through and
with them.
I'll do the first rep maybe, and then I may go around and fix things because those can be a million form points to doing those correctly to get the proper benefit. Mm-hmm. Even all those drills. So that way I'm able to show, and then I'm there and you see an expectation of effort. So they're not just the sloppy circles that aren't doing much. I mean, I make them a challenging effort. Same thing, but the same thing. I lead cars in group classes of much larger groups, and we learn how to get after them with the right cueing and feedback. So you can't. It's harder to start there, though. I've started with a handful of new folks, and you go through intake. We go through the basic movements, and then I can kind of individualize it out a little bit from there. But you have to keep it relatively similar, or think of your logistics too. Everybody's gym is different, but I make sure that what I've chosen to do can be done in a close enough proximity so I don't have one athlete at the one end of the gym and one at the other, because this space is pretty long here. And I know like your facility has multiple kind of corridors. You could be working in one area and not even be able to see the other side.
Exactly.
So those things, simple logistic stuff.
Have you done this on a remote basis at all, Scott?
I have written team workouts remotely. And I conversation on what the equipment availability and what things could be done, in that setting to take that into account.
So
but as far as some of these types of sessions, I haven't done that, I suppose, with a couple. I mean, I've done remote programming for couples, but they were literally completely separate workouts done at a separate time.
Got it.
Separate, they weren't done together.
Yeah, so I was thinking the best bet for like a small group remotely or even in gym without your supervision would be individualized training, but then team workouts involved as well.
Yeah. Totally. It could be written into the design, where you have individual, and then certain days there's expectation of doing it together, and it requires the team to be done properly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little trickier, but all that definitely can be done.
Yep. How did you come across meeting these dancers?
We had coached a chiropractor in town here that we've had a relationship with for many years, and one of the physical therapists that works with the Portland Trail Blazers and the Ballet Theater in town. They were, colleagues and good friends, and this opportunity came up, and so through the chiropractor that we already trained, put us in in contact, and then we all kind of met, and I had to make a proposal how I was going to do it, and they liked what I proposed to do, so I got hired by the ballet theater to coach the male dancers, and it's kind of been an ongoing thing. I ended up writing some articles for Dance Magazine on strength and
Oh, wow.
conditioning,
Okay.
which is a pretty big, print publication in that community. And I get still I, those articles from years ago, and I still pick up clients. Actually, just last hour, I was coaching one of the young dancers that I got through that article. I've
No
worked with
kidding.
for a couple of years.
Wow.
So
And I know we've gone over pretty much all the considerations in terms of coaching and training dancers before. How does it translate to their actual performance in the things that you're doing? What are some of the things that they report and the nuances that allow you to know that, hey, we're going in the right direction? Because it is
yeah,
like a aesthetic space deal,
it's
right?
aesthetic, yeah, totally. Yeah, and there aren't measurables necessarily in the
Mm-hmm.
performance like there is with other athletic endeavors. But the report we would get, and this is from the administration that watched um, when I was working with the whole group. The concerns they had was that they didn't some of the girls didn't feel comfortable being partnered overhead with the strength and control the guys had, and that other companies would come to town and look like they were flying because they had these massive, effortless-looking verticals. So those
Mm.
were the two main goals that I was charged with trying to develop,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and the girls felt much more confident and that they were safe in the partnering, all the partnering skills, and that was their feedback, and then also the jump height visually seemed to increase quite a bit. And I know here in the gym we had metrics because we would measure that periodically, so I know that it
Yeah.
was. But then still the way that they have to perform it in a routine is not exactly the same as how we would test it in the gym. But um, that and then aesthetically too, just there's a certain not overdeveloped, but you definitely do want a bit of a sculpted look in a male dancer,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something that, and they're really, it's amazing to watch the skills and the speed they would develop technique with. Um, and I've noticed that across the board. This guy I'm working with right now, I mean, one of the things that's kind of popular in that community is doing some gymnastic work for the support strength, et cetera. So we're working on handstand work, and he's flexible enough that he can press the handstand on the spread of 8.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gotten quite a bit stronger on his hands. But there's just how quickly he's picked up figuring out how to balance upside down compared to scores of other people I've worked with through the years at various levels. It's like oh, he's gonna have this down in like weeks, not months or years.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
So
Very interesting. Cool. Well, there's one other thing I kind of wanted to go into, and so I'm getting finished up with a deload week here, and it's been a while since I've had consistency in my deload weeks, and just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of feedback here.
yeah,
Because as we get further and further into training age, I think deloads are much more important than they ever were when you're early on in the training. But I did a 3 week progressive build, and now I'm backing off for a week. And I mean, very low volume, like 3 sets of 5 at 60% on a couple lifts, a little bit of aerobic work,
mm-hmm.
nothing crazy. But the first couple days, obviously, are I have to train. I have to train. So dealing with that attachment of not having or not training because I'm doing doubles 2 to 3 times a week with training sessions 5 days a week, and then not being in the gym and not actually training. So you kind of have your hands free. But as the week progresses on, I think one of the things that I think all athletes can appreciate is as you get into the deload week, you want to train, and then you don't want to train, and then you have a spark to train again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's important, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on deload weeks in particular.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. As their training age is up there, they become ever more important. We're able to dig deeper into our physiology, and we're nearer to our ultimate potential than we were years prior. Um, I've, for the most part, like them myself as a little bit of a mental break. I actually kind of really enjoy them. But
Mm-hmm.
I have seen that the vast majority of the people that I've coached over the years report the exact same thing you just said. It's kind of like it's like difficult to deload at first. Then there can be a bit of a dip in there where like you don't really even want to do it. But then at the end, the ultimate goal is that you start, you know, getting antsy and really wanting to get back at it, which
Mm-hmm.
is good. You've recovered and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And I think you know the I put them in largely for in nearly every case, with the exception being when I know people's life schedules kind of provide them
Deloads
a
every once
deload,
in a while. Yeah.
and then they may not be written in, but yeah, I'm really pretty. The longer someone's trained, the more frequent I put them in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's a little golden nugget there. And the more you train, the more deloads you need. And then maybe even like periods of time of just not training at all, or just getting restorative work in.
Too, yeah, yep, totally.
I think that's
Um,
important. Yeah, well, I mean, this week in particular, I spent time like working on my other things outside of it. So I think it's also a great opportunity to restore balance within in the trainee's life.
mhm.
You know, work, family, other stressors, so that doesn't get so skewed that everything's hinging on training and performance. That you actually probably can benefit from just stepping away from training, because then there's more balance within your life, so that everything that you do isn't centered around just training.
Yeah, yeah, I think that can be regardless of how well someone's recovering. Um, if that's all everything is centered around, then
Mm-hmm.
it's a pretty big imbalance overall, and will lead to some problems over time. So unless your sport is paying the bills, and even then you see
Yeah.
the price down the line. Um, that I think that's
Yeah, it's a very
super
good
important
point.
to do that.
There was like I think they talked about the samurai, how even though that they spent, hours every day perfecting their technique with the sword, they were also poets and artists, and they did calligraphy, and they were well spoken. So I think it goes back to things that we've talked about before, how you're not an athlete first, you're a human being first. So
Mm-hmm.
if a person has balance for that individual as a human, then they get themselves as better athletes. Then they could be a better samurai, dancer, professional CrossFitter, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um, yeah. So
yeah. Otherwise, you're running on a little bit of borrowed time, and I think a lot of people want to do whatever activity it is that they're into for a long period of time.
yep.
So those things are very important to consider if that is indeed a goal that you have.
What's the longest trainee that you've had working on an individual basis, Scott?
I am over 10 years with, well, at least one guy,
Mm-hmm.
two, no, two, and I'm just a little behind that with several others.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
So yeah, um, and we've got people here that train in the gym that
Mm-hmm.
I don't even do individual, but they're either
That
doing
is,
classes
yeah,
or maybe I
classes.
have at points done
Yep. But
individual
they've been a
with. So
part
they've
of the
been here
part of the
for
gym for that long.
longer than that, even. Yeah, a
Wow.
couple. Yeah.
You got some
Actually,
OGs.
actually, I'm actually no. Come to think of it, there's a guy I'm writing a program for that's been around about 11 years. A lot
Oh
of that
wow.
time, I didn't write his program; he just trained here.
Yep.
But I am writing his program now. So
No kidding. So how does it feel to have athletes working with you for 10 years plus?
yeah, I mean, I think back to what my life and even the gym that was in our original location. And
Yeah.
what it was like, back then, and it's like, man, a lot of time has passed since then, and it's pretty phenomenal. And I really, am deeply humbled by that someone would both trust in what, we're doing for that long of a time and all the changes in philosophy that have come along in that era, but also that they're find it interesting enough and we're still making progress in areas after all that time.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I imagine that there's some kind of external validation for, hey, they're with me. I must be doing something right. Uh, but there's also, a selflessness about being a coach where it's not about you. It's about the individual being able to make strides for over a decade. I mean, that's
Mm.
pretty dang cool. Are these general fitness enthusiasts or
For the
competitive at
most
all,
part, well,
or here and
yes and
there?
no. Yeah. So like the guy I've worked with individually for just 10 years this month, I guess, actually. Glad you mentioned that. I should do something for him.
There you go,
but
Scott.
he was a Thai boxer for
Oh wow.
like the first half of that time, competitive and kind of
Uh-huh.
moving up the ranks. And then his father owns a very large company. It's the same company that is sharing our space here now.
Mm-hmm.
And as Portland started to explode in growth, there on the job stuff, basically he had to make a choice. It was like, I can't Thai box and train, and he decided that it was more important to be fit than Thai box. So
Yeah.
he ditched that, and now he's been kind of just gym pop training
Mm-hmm.
since then. Another guy he's never competed, but he's kind of he did some Ido Portal training for a while. Has done hand balancing, a lot of higher level gymnastic-y stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for the most part, he trains for general fitness, but utilizing those higher level movements along with other more standard gen pop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely different avenues, but yeah, not no one that's been kind of right in the rabbit hole of one exact sport
Yeah. Yeah.
that whole time. One guy that is close to 10 years now he was a regional level athlete for what was it 2010, 11, 12 in that range, and then uh, kind of decided to just keep doing it, but for fun after that. And now he's like pretty serious about golf.
Oh, cool.
So it's more training for golf performance in his general fitness. He doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't compete anymore.
I think that there's something to say about that in terms of training for over a decade with something because, um, like, there's fitness for every period of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And putting your fitness in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing allows you to trust in something that allows you to just go ahead and execute and know that there's something bigger than yourself and that you need help and that you're getting help. Like you said, like, hey, the year that I had my first kid is going to be different than when I was a Thai boxer or when I tried to do golf or whatever it might be. So,
Mm-hmm.
Having somebody to trust and then just following through with the program allows for such less stress involved for the individual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And it keeps it interesting, and we've all done that too, right? Our goals change in time, whether it's phases of life or you just, you feel like you've wrung what you can out of one endeavor, but there's a new one out there.
Yeah. I mean, you and I are probably very similar in the sense that we're probably going to train for the rest of our lives. But has there ever been a time for you where you've said like I'm just done and completely?
I haven't even, no, not really. No, I mean, I've been, geez, I mean, I started riding my bike at 16 and was immediately doing that a lot. And I
Uh-huh.
literally, from 16 to now 51, I've never
Yep.
not ridden.
Wow.
And then about 20 some years ago, I decided to start picking up weights and
Mm-hmm.
learning anything I could about strength and conditioning. And I've been
Yeah.
training continuously that whole time too. The closest thing I had to an off was when I had my shoulder surgery about 18-ish years ago. And,
Yeah.
and, and even then, I mean, I bought an Iron Mind hip squat belt so I
Yep.
could strap a barbell on and still keep my lower body working. And I trained
Yeah.
my left arm,
Yeah.
with the single arm stuff. I didn't really stop outside of that first week, maybe.
Yeah. I definitely think that there is a bit of an addiction to training. Not addiction is a bad word. I think probably like a habitual, almost like spiritual deal with what we do. You go into the gym and you're just much more in the moment. You're more in tune with everything. You're constantly learning. In a way, it's a religion, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably confers some of the mental and neuroimmunological benefits of a practice like the spiritual practice like religion,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know meditation confers certain things and mindfulness and connection with groups. So
Yep.
especially if you have that in your training or your athletic endeavor as well,
Yeah.
like you get in a meditative state kind of whether
Yeah.
you want to or not
Uh-huh.
when you're training hard, right? And that's the difference between I think what a lot of us do and we're not on a treadmill watching
Yeah.
CNN,
Yeah.
stressing out.
Yeah.
We're present whether
You're not on, like, I mean, there are times where you're kind of like you're here and you're there, but
yep.
I think it's an opportunity for you to connect to yourself, connect to others, and connect to something bigger than yourself, which I think is one of the tenets of being a balanced individual is those three things. So when you throw your gym bag down, you high five your buddies, that's that connection to others. When you're
Yeah.
lifting and you're training hard and you're kind of in your own head and you're meeting yourself for those times, that's that meeting of yourself. And then when you're lying on the floor wondering when the pain is going to stop, it's almost like a surrender to something bigger than yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost all three of those things at once. And not to sound too airy fairy, but it's amazing that more people aren't exposed to something like this. And it's pretty cool to see, again, going back to 10 plus years of some of these individuals, that once they get in that pattern, they never want to leave it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. And I think those connections, those people could do this stuff somewhere else,
Yeah.
but you develop connections with certain individuals, and they've obviously rotated through the years, but it's
Yeah.
still the familiarity and there clearly is something about the shared struggle. It's not really like fighting the neighboring tribe, like maybe is
Yeah.
what it's replicating deep in the DNA, but
Yeah.
we don't realize that it's conferring certain things that is very powerful.
Yeah. I think that's pretty damn cool. All right,
Yeah.
Mr. Scott. I think that's probably good for this week. You got anything else?
Oh no, I think that's about it. I'm going to go enjoy this warm weather, do a little riding, hit my 20 reps of some stuff, and
That's cool, man. All right. Very cool.
yeah.
Well, I'm Sean LaFlock. You can get me at Sean at CrossFitDelrayBeach.com.
And Scott, you can get me at Scott at CrossFitPortland.com.
Beautiful. I'll talk to you next week, Scotty.
Yeah, will do.
Later, dude.